recommendations as we process information, that we will be able to make those decisions that are appropriate for our town and for our citizens. This we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
All right, so today is the 23rd of March 2021. We're having a regular Cardston Town Council meeting. We like to recognize in the gallery Mr. Gibb Schaefer, Dr. Lloyd Clark, Mr. David Innes, and Mr. and Mrs. Williams, and also Jill Henninger from the staff, and Corey McCarthy for Channel 32. Thank you all for being there, much appreciated. We're going to call this meeting to order, and are there any addition or adoption of the agenda? If no addition,
I move to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting.
thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right. So, Mr. Lloyd Clark, Dr. Clark, if you like to come, I don't know if you are doing a joint presentation or if you are the presenter.
Just me.
Okay, all right, fine. Go ahead, and welcome to be here for your presence.
Wow. Good evening. Thank you for seeing me tonight and for, so I want to just like go right out on a limb and say, is there anything that council would like to ask a doctor about COVID tonight? Just hit me with your question. I'll answer it.
Okay, I'll give you one.
Okay.
What's your position on masks?
On masks?
Yes.
Well, let me explain. Every day of my career for the last year, I've seen somebody with COVID restriction, with COVID symptoms or COVID active disease. In the course of my work, I've washed my hands and I've shielded with a mask and with a gown and sometimes with a shield. I haven't caught COVID yet. I don't intend to walk in a room with somebody coughing without them wearing a mask or me wearing a mask, because I don't want to catch COVID. So if you don't believe in a mask, come with me and I can sit you in a room, and I think you'll start believing in masks really quick.
Thank you very much. A wise advice for us all in this town. Thank you.
So tonight, I want to thank you for your time, and I'll try to make this as succinct as I can. I'm here as a citizen of town, and I believe, after a conversation with Jeff, that I have the dubious pleasure of being the highest taxpayer in town. I didn't know that. I'm kind of unhappy about that. I better talk to Ryan and have him build another building or something. So I'm also the president of the Cardston County Pickleball Association. My wife did that to me because she likes pickleball. So the first thing I want to do is find out how to click. Is there up or down is not.
You're going to say next slide.
Next slide. And thank you. I first of all want to say thank you to you, because you're our elected officials, and I'm very grateful for the service you've given. Turn it the other way.
No.
Push down. And I want to recognize that work that you have done and the service you've given as our elected officials in your terms. Some of you I know have served multiple terms. I admire that. You're doing a job not many people ever sign up to do, and you've done it pretty darn good. So thank you very much. Why is a rec center important? I don't want to spend a lot of time here because I believe I'm speaking to the choir. Because I called all of you and we talked, so thank you for your time. A rec center is important because a survey said it was. 51% of our population. I don't think there's been many other things that have been surveyed in our town that have gotten a mandate such as 51%. We didn't get a survey to decide.
56%.
56%, thank you, that's even better. We didn't get a survey to decide if we were going to do a solar plant. We didn't get a survey to decide the renovation of the pool. I'm not doubting the importance of those. I'm just telling you that this has a mandate. We don't have an indoor exercise place unless you swim or skate. We can only swim 2.5 months of the year. We have an unmet need of the Pickling Association. We had 3 tournaments, it's 70 people at each tournament, not different people, the same. We, I believe, could have an indoor reunion center, something that allows us to have a civic type event that anybody can go to. Right now, Cardston Sports Services don't really have a great place where they could take their people to exercise. The number one advice I give in life as a physician is get active, be active, exercise. The second one is stop drinking so much soda pop. Sorry, Dennis. So we need to find a way to be active, and I believe it's our town's civic responsibility to find a place for us to be active. When will health become a high priority? I know it's already a priority because this council went to the provincial government and pleaded and begged with all the powers that be for a new hospital on our behalf. So I thank you for that. There's a lot of myths that go along with the rec center. We have too many gyms in Cardston. I've heard that said on Facebook a few hundred times. So let's count up how many gyms. We have a lot of churches. Is it the church's responsibility to provide a gym for civic access? I don't think so. We have the school gyms. Is it the school's division's responsibility to find a place for me to exercise with my family on a Saturday morning? Well, guess what? You can't. Unless you're an employee of Westwind, you can't get in a school. Unless you're a member of the church and have a key because you have a specific calling, you can't get into church. And right now, you can't get into church anyway. I know in my conversations with you that if there was a utopian society, then you would all say without hesitation, let's build it. If we didn't have to pay the bills, let's build it. I'm a realist. The capital costs alone would be well over $1 million. The maintenance costs would be upwards of $150,000 a year, depending upon what we build. So what do? Well, I first want to thank you again for being cautious with my money, because it is taxpayer money, and I respect the sanctity of those dollars. You were brave. You made a motion back in the fall, in principle, to reserve $1 million. I believe that was accurate. You found that $1 million. I don't believe you raised taxes to find it, because I didn't get a notice of the mill rate change in October. So there's $1 million sitting somewhere. You found it out of recreation money, I believe. Now, I'm smart enough to know that budgets are done in lines and silos. I'm smart enough to know, and maybe after I'm gone, it'll be clarified if I'm wrong, that the building of a rec center with recreation money does not mean we don't get to pave our streets next year. It also doesn't mean that we don't get a sewer system rehauled. That's different money, different pocket. So it's not like we're going to lose services in some other place because we build a rec center with money that's already set aside out of the recreation budget. You were very prudent. You did a renovation of the swimming pool, several $1 million there. You didn't increase the taxes, I believe. You saved the money. You prepared for it. So is there another more important facility that can impact the health and welfare of our citizens, and that's been mandated by a survey? I don't think so, but maybe you know better. So what's next? I'm asking you tonight to fulfill the mandate of the survey. The survey said, we want a rec center. We don't want to pay for it. I think the number was 51% said we'd allow a 2% increase to pay for it. So why don't you try this? For a while now, we've been, pardon me for the expression, we've been letting the tail wag the dog. In the paucity of information and energy on the subject, there's a number of us who've been very enthusiastic, and maybe we've gotten a little carried away. Maybe we've added too many things in there that we can't afford. I don't know. But in our passion and enthusiasm, we've gotten excited because we saw a glimmer of hope. So let's go backwards a little bit and let's team up together. Let's say what would happen if the town actually committed, not just in principle, but in reality, to take that $1 million and reserve it and put it aside, and not in principle, but in fact, and enable the rest of the ducks to fall in line. What happens? Well, I can then go to the corporate sponsors that we have that have got the subject at head office already. And I can say, The municipality of Cardston is behind the rec center in Cardston. If you want your name on the building, line up, give us a number, and they can then jump in. Why would a corporation put money into a project that the town in which the project is occurring isn't even willing to put money into yet? But if you do, they will fall in line. I personally have committed $50,000 to this project. You might say, why? Well, because if I don't, my wife's going to make me build a court in my yard for $50,000. So it's actually kind of better, because I don't want to build a court. I got too much stuff there. And my taxes would go up. I made a phone call 3 weeks ago to a friend. I said, I'm giving $50,000. How much are you? And he said, I guess I'm giving $50,000. I don't think that I could do that 20 more times to fund the whole project, but I have confidence if the town commits the money and challenges us and says essentially to me, okay, Lloyd Clark, put your big mouth where your money is and go find the rest of the money. Don't dig till we find the money. Find the right building in the right place, the Goldilocks building as I think of it. The right size, the right shape, and let our administration people do their job properly by following all municipal processes to allow this to occur with the right tendering and commercial ways they do this. Engineering, specifications, costings, etc. It also allows us to enter the CEBA grant cycle and all the other grant cycles. You put a motion together and you commit to this, then challenge us to find the money. So why don't you just defer it? Why don't you just pass it off and leave it for the next council? Well, you've already got 2 surveys to back this up. You've already spent some money on this. Do you want to waste more money asking the question again? Do you want to waste more of my money asking town again? Do they want to do this? You're already very fiscally responsible. Stop bandying about. Don't be irresponsible, be responsible. You've spent time and energy. Each of you, when I talked to you, knew all of the issues better than I did. You have knowledge that this next council will not have and cannot get without the time served that you have served within. The next council will be overwhelmed, not just with being a new council, but with all the new things that are coming into place. And the last thing is the time. Not that I want to panic and rush into this. I don't. But we all know how time passes quickly with the council. Before you know it, 2 years go by and nothing has happened. You have done more for a rec center in our community than any other previous council. And so I ask you to keep going. Don't defer, don't wait, don't postpone. So we talked about the capital costs. I've given you a hope that you would challenge us to find the rest of the money after you set a budget of what you know you can do. So what about the maintenance costs? We know that lots and lots of facilities are built in our town with no consideration that it actually adds up. We don't have a lot of industry to pay for stuff. We don't have a huge commercial sector. So what do we do to raise the maintenance costs of a building of this nature? Well, let me tell you. I had a phone call the other day, a nice elderly lady. She's about 80 years of age. She'll probably never set foot in the reunion center, which I believe, in the rec center that I believe we will build eventually. But she asked me, what was pickleball? And what are we going to do with it? And why do we need a rec center? And I gave her a lengthy chat. She's the kind of person you can't hang up on in 20 minutes. It's a 25-minute chat no matter what. When I was done, she says, well, you know what? I'll probably never use it, but I think that's a worthwhile thing, and I'll give you money towards that. I would definitely be able to donate money. She's a pensioner. So I say this. If this community can raise $1 million to match the town's $1 million, I think that gives you a mandate that this community wants a rec center, and they're willing to pay a little bit extra, and wherever it has to come from, whether they sacrifice in other ways, or whether you just get more efficient, or whether you do all the things that town administration do to find money magically. Because I have accounts and they add up 1 and 1 and get 4 sometimes. So I challenge you that if we can raise the money to build it, we can certainly find the way to keep it going. So I want to remind you, you've done more already for a rec center than any other council has done in my memory. Don't stop now. You have the opportunity to do this without raising taxes. You've already committed in principal money. So, you didn't raise taxes to find that money, you just found it somehow. Keep going. There's a way to do this. And if you do it within this council, then there's not a huge delay and it doesn't get put off the way it's been by other councils. 2 or 3 councils ago, a brave group of people like you bought the golf course on behalf of the town. Nobody would ever question that, but back then it was a very risky proposition. I can imagine this takes a little bit of courage, and I'm grateful for your fiduciary responsibility to my money as a taxpayer. And I ask you, consider the merits and make a decision that you think serves the interests of our community in the short and long term. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have questions? I must say I have different thoughts, but I reserve them for later when we'll discuss your presentation. So thank you for your perspective. I just note one thing, that in a letter that we got from you, you were really referring to wanting a pickleball, really at the end of the day. That was truly what you really wanted. And if you don't mind me saying that, you say we seek an ongoing relationship so as to understand the process fully toward a satisfactory outcome. And I think you demonstrated that through your slide. But it really was somewhere down that letter that you sent us, that really at the end of the day, your organization really wanted to find a place to play. Am I wrong?
Well, definitely, I can
So
speak
it's a
on...
different proposal.
There was a technical problem with what you received and what I meant for you to receive. So what I presented is the bulk of it, but it's not anything with administration. I clicked on the wrong file. So don't worry, but there was nothing hidden in what I sent. It's just that the point in answer to your question, Mayor, was, do we want just a pickleball facility? And you know what? You could build a cheap little pickleball gym that could house 3 courts, 2 courts or something. And that would be adequate for something. But if you wanted to build something that the town has responded in the survey about your question as a rec facility, that might be more appropriate if you wanted to follow the mandate of the survey. So I represent the Pickleball Association, but I also, thinking as a town citizen, if it was a choice of spending $1 million on 3 pickleball courts or spending $2 million because the town raised $1 million and the citizens raised $1 million, and you get a great rec center which has other facilities within it and can be afforded. I'm not suggesting we go all out and ruin our budget and can't pave our streets forever, like some other communities we know in our area. I'm saying affordable and responsible that serves the needs of multiple groups.
Thank you. Dr. Bengry.
Dr. Clark, you referred to the survey several times in this presentation, and I must refer to the survey also in the fact that the negative response coming to this council was there would be no increase, annual increase, an annual increase. At this proposed time, it would be a nominal increase, but what happened in years to come, there was no support of any type of an increase in annual taxes. Going to the use of this building, either in the construction nor the maintenance, and operational costs. So you never referred to that. You only referred to that we wanted a recreation center. And I'm not disputing the fact that the citizens of Cardston didn't come back to council and say, yes, 33% of that survey have been returned, out of 1,500 and some surveys, 500 and some of them come back, and the response was, yes, we would like to have a recreation center, but we will not support the raising of taxes to support that unit. Now, as you are aware, Dr. Clark, we have an ice arena, we have a swimming pool, we have a spray park, we have ball diamonds, we have a tennis court, we have a football field, and they're all lit. They're all groomed as baseball fields with red shale. We have to import from Saskatchewan, which costs us a fortune. They're all groomed, which costs a fortune, just on daily operational of these units. Where, in your proposal, and it's an excellent presentation, do we find the money to continue on with the operational costs of everything else we have in town, when our swimming pool is costing us anywhere from $120,000 up during season to operate? I don't know what our skating rink is costing us. I think it's $60,000 or $70,000. And that's very limited now because of COVID. I don't know what our recreation budget is for our ball diamonds, but we just spent a couple of $1 million on ball diamonds in the building of dugouts and so forth. And consequently, the shop, Public Works, built those dugouts, which was a great savings. But in the maintenance, in the mowing and the grooming and so forth like that, I can't remember what our recreation budget is.
I think the dugout is probably.
Well, the dugouts weren't $2 million, but that's involved in the maintenance and the functioning. I don't know what it costs to operate the lights on the ballparks as they're used, and the lights down at the football field are paid for when the high school uses it. But we have ongoing absolute costs, which are flooring. The spray park costs $120,000 or something. It just in the limited time that it was open. So I'm asking you, because of this presentation, where does this council or any other council find the money to even have the operational costs of the present facilities that we have, and not including a rec center?
Thank you for your question. Mayor, if you wish.
Go ahead.
So if I can make sure I have addressed your question, you cited the ice rink, swimming pool, spray park, ball diamonds. I can't read my scribble. Ball diamonds, the football field, and a T word I can't see.
Tennis court.
Tennis courts. I played pickleball last Saturday on the tennis courts. That's the first day I've been able to play since August. I have patients who can't walk in the wintertime. All of those activities, apart from the ice rink, are summer activities, which can, in our climate, you can do between the months of June to September, perhaps. So where would you suggest I tell my patients to go walk in February and not risk breaking their hip? Yes, the Remington Center, which is available 3 days a week at $15
A
year, which is great. But is it the Remington Center's responsibility to provide that access? What about if they want to lift weights, to tone up, or to do some focused physical therapy? There isn't one. They have to climb stairs into the swimming pool gym or the blue and white gym at the school. So I would return the question as being, there isn't a suitable adequate facility that I can see that reasonably removes obstacles to access for physical activity for our citizens? That's the first question. The second question was, how do we find the capital costs? Well, I would say you already did. You already put aside in principle a recreation budget to the tune of $1 million. Now that's in principle. So my suggestion is make that something else, the next level. Instead of just in principle, can you find it? Now, that's your job and their job. I'm not going to tell you how the money all works, but it's there according to the minutes and the previous council. The second question or third was, how do we deal with, well, clarification, the Ball Diamonds lights are lit 6 times a year. That's it. And when they're lit, the Ball Diamond Association, I think, relies on the town to pay for that. But most of the time, we run and get a couple of jugs of diesel and fill them up. So after the capital costs of the lights were paid for, which was done by fundraising by Gibb and his group back 15 years ago. So that capital cost doesn't have a lot of ongoing maintenance costs to it, I would just say, but perhaps our accounting people could give us clarification to you at another time. In summary, the capital costs are there because you've already found them. So challenge us, give us a mandate to go find the rest of the money. Don't dig, don't do anything until we raise all the money. Just make plans and make commitments to say you'll give it a go. And then we can. Now the survey actually said 56% wanted a REX facility. And I believe 51% said they would accept a 2% increase in taxes to manage a REC facility. Now, that's one thing that could also be clarified by your scrutiny of the survey results. I don't want to,
Yeah,
you know.
There's so many
just
different
to clarify
people
that,
talk.
I think there is that answer to your question, as you respectfully trying to answer the question you posed, which was, where's the capital money and how do we pay for this on an ongoing basis? I challenge my pickleball association to raise money to find a way to keep it going. If we're so excited and energetic to get one, then give us a chance to find the money to keep it going too.
Okay. Councillor Cork and around here, was there somebody? Councillor Group? Councillor Selk, okay.
Just a
And
clarification,
Councillor Bengry.
55% of those polled said they would contribute some more in taxes to this. That was not zero. It was 55%, so they would accept an increase between $50 and $200 a year.
Okay, can we
That's
maybe remember also that this survey represents 33% of the householder and does not represent 100% of it, right? So let's keep that in mind also. Okay.
That's the point. Let's keep in mind that they all could have filled out this survey as well, and they chose not to.
There is no doubt, but there is that lack of knowledge we have of 66% of the population, which is something we have to reckon with. Councillor Selk, go ahead.
So, Dr. Clark, can you give us a time frame? How long will it take you and your associates, we'll put it that way, not necessarily the pickleball associates, but all your associates, how long of a time frame are you looking at to raise $1 million?
How about a year?
So if we said we commit to this $1 million, you have 1 year to raise the rest, and if by that time we haven't got the money to put shovels in the ground, all the money goes back into wherever the reserves and move forward. Is that what you're suggesting?
I would welcome that challenge.
Okay.
I would also welcome the challenge to say, because I haven't said where or how big or what color, and that would be everything that could be worked out. Maybe there needs to be a grouping with the golf course and combine efforts so that we save and don't duplicate resources and staffing. Maybe there's lots of things to answer.
I appreciate you, that was my question for you. The presentation there does not really give me, did not give me the feeling that you were looking for in Mr. Williams' word, that symbiotic partnership that could enhance needs of different entities, be it the golf course, the church, or whichever other partnership. And I really think, I'm glad you're addressing that. Do you want to go a little bit more in depth in that idea?
I would love to, and thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and Council. I'm going to speak. Physicians do a statistician's degree on their way, and an epidemiological degree on our way to being a doctor. Not a full degree, but several classes. The survey was faulted from the start, guys.
Fully. I agree.
So why did you do it? If you're going to do it, then it might have been smarter to do it better. If you're going to rely on the survey. So, pardon me, but it was damned if you do and damned if you don't.
I agree.
Those who are opponents of the rec center can take the survey and use it in their manner. Those who are proponents of the rec center can turn it their way. So what do you do about that information? Well, you have to, if it can be twisted in both directions, you have to accept that. What about all of these non-respondents? What does a non-respondent mean? Now, if we're doing a medical study and half the people don't come back for care, it means they're sick automatically, so you can't rely on that result. So the statistics are invalid. But a respondent survey of an interested thing, such as a municipal idea, gathers those who are interested, and the rest could be assumed to not care. It's not that they're not statistically valid, but they don't care enough to respond. Therefore, they can be ignored, and your statistical significance can remain in place. The second thought is, what would we be willing to do? I'll do anything to play pickleball. I'll do anything to have a walking track so that when I'm 75 I can walk. I'll do whatever it takes. If that means we partner with the golf course, partner us with the golf course. That's my reference to the tail wagging the dog. We have been trying to figure out what the town wants, but we don't have control over any of the money. And so we present this and this and this, hoping that something sticks, but nothing's sticking because you guys are the ones in the control. So if you tell us, this is what you can afford, this is what the mandate you have to build, now you have to raise this much money because this is all you're getting from the town, then now we'll go out and we'll find the pickleball, gym, rec facility that you want us to have for our town, because nobody else wants this more than, and is more responsible with this than you as a council.
All right, thank you so much. Councillor Bengry?
Dr. Clark, I just want to respond back to your one answer, and I appreciate this presentation. Where did this $1 million come from that we found? I served on 4 councils, and past councils has made it a decision that we put money in reserves, recreation reserves. That's where that money comes from. It didn't come from overnight. I mean, the councils and the past councils have been very prudent, very concerned about capital expenditures, operational and, whatever. And so that $1 million didn't come overnight. I mean, it's been in the making for a long time. Now, when Councillor Selk asked you how much time you needed, you feel you can raise $1 million in a year?
I'd love the chance, because right now I don't have a chance. I can't raise $100,000 besides me and my friend, because nobody else is willing to put their money on the block without a municipal backing. In answer, I don't know the terminology. I understand it's recreation money, but I'm also not so naive to say that there's $1 million sitting in a pocket somewhere. That there was a motion as I reviewed YouTube on town council from, I think, October. There was a motion in principle to, I believe the wording is reserve $1 million, or my word's fine, but it's probably not the right word. So administration has that and can give you a better answer than I can regarding where and how, but that's all I can say to that.
All right.
If you give us a chance, then if we fail, you didn't lose. This is a wonderful opportunity. If we don't raise the money, you're all scot-free. If we raise the money, now you can go forward to the next level. Sorry.
All right. So here is maybe a budget time frame we have to look at. When you and I spoke,
Yes.
I was telling you there, in my opinion, that the time frame is something we need to really consider, that this budget is crucial for us because when we put it in principle, there were many aspects that we did not know that were going to change the color of that budget and the financing of it without increasing more than 2% taxes, which that budget was already based on when all around the communities were taking that 2% or any increase out. So we already based that budget in principle, since the mill rate is not set yet, was a 2% increase. But that was a collective view when we did it. Since then, many other things came forward. The replacement of the sewer plant was not something that we thought needed to be done ASAP. And right now we are in the ASAP mode. It's not something that we thought this budget 2021 needed to have in. We thought 2022. So that changes the picture an awful lot because that's a lot of money. That's 3.3 million plus. There was no doubt in my mind that we needed to carry on doing road work and maintenance, etc. We had that plan. We reduced how much we were going to do, but that was even accepted by this council, except that about 3 weeks ago or so, we had people on 2nd Ave West that start to have their sewer back up in their home. You wouldn't want that in your house without somebody done ASAP. Well, we have that. That's not a small amount of money. That's lots of money, as you know. Anything under the ground doesn't come cheap. But this cannot be pushed along the next budget. It has to be done with this budget. So there is another reality that we did not have a clear picture then, was the MSI. The MSI, which is a transfer of funding from the provincial to the municipal, we had no idea how badly it was going to be slashed. We thought 25%. That's what we counted on in a preliminary budget. Well, guess what? Next year is 50% cut. 44 plus, close to 50%. And the year after, same story from this year's budget. So, 2 years on a row, we lose a lot of money. And that's not all. Then you put what we lose at the federal level, which is a gas tax that all of a sudden is going to tank. That's also money that we use to kind of round up the budget nicely. And to make it matter worse, we only have to add the cost of policing, which never were there before. And now we know exactly what it's going to be this year. The bill is coming this March, actually, the end of the month, the first time, about $80,000. But within 3 years, it's going to be almost $300,000. So you tell me $300,000, we don't have $3 million in tax revenue, 1/10 of that money is for policing this town. So those are the parameters from the time that we put the budget $1 million in principle that was made up of reserve, of fresh reserve for this year that we would tax for, and MSI with $300,000. And stopping doing a few other things. When you put all that together, the picture, the economic pictures is very, very different from the time we put that in principle. And when we did it in principle, you are correct. We had said, we put it in principle, we won't put a shovel in the ground until we have donations there. We also wanted to have a proper total picture of the cost and the associated operation cost for that size building that changed from 8,000 square feet to 16,000 square feet from one week to the other. We never really knew what was coming next.
Yes.
So we had to make decisions on unknown presented to us time and time again. And I appreciate Mr. Schaefer having done his utmost to try to create a building with the minimum amount of dollars. But the problem in the making, as you refer to, processes were not part of that vision, the tendering, etc. Yes, you can do a lot when you know you can have volunteers, absolutely, but the tendering process is a different beast. And when you build something that is a municipal facilities, and the lawyers tells you, well, if you go with volunteers, there is a certain amount of risk. Those are the risk you have, and etc. The bonding, etc. So many facets. So we cannot just say yes as a blank check. We got to take all that into consideration, otherwise we're not doing our job.
And I appreciate you for doing your job and being careful with the taxpayer money. I need some clarification from council. Am I mistaken if I understand that the swimming pool renovation was money set aside out of a recreation budget?
Can I tell you how the swimming pool?
And that gradually over time was sort of reserved perhaps to allow us to afford that?
I can tell you the story of the swimming pool.
Yeah.
The swimming pool came in 3 phases.
Right.
So it was not done overnight.
Right.
And the swimming pool had money that was reserved and had also money that was, in those days, transferred from some other account. I don't exactly remember which one. But we also had matching grants.
Great.
And it was at the time when Noel, what was Noel last name? Smith, sorry. Noel Smith managed to get us a fabulous deal to get a retrofit of a pool with a grant that was meant to be for a new facility.
And that's what
But we
I'm
did
asking
not have
for.
the money to do a new facilities, but they allowed us to change the design of the pool and retrofit us, and they helped us navigate the grant, and we got it.
And that's what I would like the opportunity to do, Mayor and Council. I would like the opportunity to find a matching grant. But we've got to match it against something. If there is a capacity to do a swimming pool renovation in a staged progress, over $3 million spent, staged savings, reserves, all of those terminology that our accountants use. Surely there is the same kind of energy that can be put forward, even in this dismal economic climate. I feel like I need to go take some Prozac with all the sewer plant replacements that suddenly are now an urgent need.
You can sit around.
suddenly we have this major need for roads and maintenance. And I appreciate that you have a huge task ahead of you. And I am glad it's your job and not mine.
Well,
But I believe in this community, and I believe in it so much that me and my partners have bought a building on Main Street and put a physiotherapy department in there because our patients needed private physio in town. We have renovated that, and now we will have another health center and bring health specialists to our town. That's the magnitude of commitment I have to our community in building and investing in our town. And I believe that our population has given you a mandate, that they also are willing to go forward with a rec center. I think your survey says that. And I would hope that we would find a way. To me, I appreciate the fiscal responsibility that you have shown. So many years of not increasing taxes, so many years, but our population needs to grow, and to grow we need to invest in the people that make it grow. We don't have, as I agree, we do not have a commercial sector. We do not have an industrial sector. Our resource is people. The new corporate world will allow people to move to little towns like ours and live here where they can have their children educated in the ways in which they want and live free and ride their bikes without fear in a small conservative town. But we have to give them something to do. We have to give them a reason to live here instead of McGrath, Raymond, or Tabor. And I think a rec facility adds to that. In the midst of our COVID crisis and a dismal economic picture, if we don't do it now, we'll never do it. You've already had bravery to come to this point. Keep trying, keep going. I'm with you, I want to work with you to find the money.
Dr. Clark, thank you for your passion. Thank you. And we will have, as you can imagine, a quite elaborate discussion when we are finished with it. Thank you very much. I think everything is in the timing and everything is within, everyone can dream. Everyone must dream, but everyone needs to be realistic and find just the right opportunity. And that's probably what needs to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now let me have a look at this. I understand Mr. Atkins is not coming, Jeff?
No, he sent his apologies, but he couldn't get here.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, there's a public hearing at 7:30, so we are going to need to wait for that a little bit longer. Okay. So let's go to 5 adoptions of minutes of March 9th, 2021. Okay, Councillor Bengry, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. There was a special council meeting on March the 17th with one item on it, and Councillor Brown.
I make a motion to adopt the minutes from our special council meeting of March 17th, 2020.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you very much. Seven, which is the intermunicipal development bylaw. But we cannot do it until we have the hearing at 7:30. So let's keep this one aside for now. We'll come back to it later. So let's go with bylaw 1698, the regional emergency management. And so what we're looking for is first reading. I just noticed some few things that I needed to talk about. So on page 6 of 10 of the very first document that you have, I noticed something and I just want clarification on it. if you look on the top of the page under F, I understand that it is one of the villages that we asked to have the idea of to appoint a CAO, kind of change to CAO or other person. What does that mean? When I mean other person,
Can I have Katie speak to this?
please help me with this one, because other person, how is that person decided?
Great question, Mayor. Now, the village's concern was that with the short staff position they find themselves in, that often they reach out to other people to help with things that can be helped with. And so they said that it's very likely that the CAO will be their DDM, but they don't want to be restricted at this point and restricting in the future, by putting in the bylaw that it has to be the CAO, but that if there is a suitable person in their community that could serve as the DEM for their community, that the bylaw would allow that.
Okay, so how do we make a decision in a time of crisis to try to find a suitable person all of a sudden, unless that person is already somewhere designated?
No, I think you're just misunderstanding a little bit, Mayor. What the bylaw says is that they are able to designate that person.
Oh, okay.
So
maybe what we should add then in that F, or other designated person, maybe the word designated should be there.
well, in the bylaw, and I don't have it here to say what point it is, but it stipulates that the council can by resolution appoint the appoint the DEM.
Yes.
And so in the definitions, it's just clarifying that it doesn't have to be the CAO to be
I
the
see.
DM who they appoint,
Yeah.
but it could be another person of their choice.
Okay, all right, so we'll leave it at that. So under 14A, help me understand, it says the agency shall be comprised of the following voting person: the CAO of each municipality, which is a member of the partnership. Are we meaning the DAM, which could be the CAO or not?
Right, and I think, Mayor, what you found is just a little error, as I made that change late in the game in response to the village's request. It
Right.
should say the DEM there, because it was the intent that the CAOs are the DEMs, and in the
Okay.
agency, they were representing that role.
Okay, could you then maybe kind of make a few corrections on the 14A, 14B, 14C?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thanks. Okay, but thank you very much. I'm not poking at you. I'm just trying to understand. That's all what I'm trying to do. All right. So is there anything else? Oh, yeah, on page 8, at the very bottom, under 20. It says, during the response of an emergency, and if the municipal dam is not available, the regional director will assume the role of the municipal dam. Is that will or could? I mean, what about the dam then at that point? I don't know, I'm trying to understand.
Oh, another great question. In our meetings and in consultation with Murphy Consulting, the group of municipalities, again, it's McGrath, in Cardston County, and the two villages and us, it was talked about and decided that the regional DEM would come and step in. Although the DDEM potentially could do that as well. And if you have concerns about that, we would love to hear those so that we can bring that feedback in.
I'm not concerned. I'm just wondering why all of a sudden, is that because the regional director becomes the DEM and then the DDEM is the DDEM, stays there as a support? I just was trying to understand.
For sure. And in the villages, I don't think that they have DDEMs, just because of the short staffing that they find themselves in. And so maybe what we could do is we could add DDEM into that parameter,
to allow for that, but also I think it's important for it to be able to have the RDEM do that in the case where there isn't a DDEM.
Now, I appreciate the desire, but imagine that there is two communities that have a disaster at the same time and two dams that are not available. He can't split himself in half.
Very sure the DDEM and the RDEM, EIEIO with the.
That too. No, I mean, I try to understand this document. I try to put it at a words, thinking, okay, would that work in that situation, or doesn't it?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We'll take a look at that and see what should be done.
But I mean, that does not preclude us from passing the first reading. All that can be fixed before the second reading or even later, so it's no problem. So if somebody feels so inclined, Councillor Selk.
I'd like to move first reading of bylaw 1698, Cardston County Regional Emergency Management Bylaw.
Thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. It's still a tough document to read. Okay, much better than the first version. Bylaw 1695. So the non-residential tax incentive bylaw, as you could see in your packet, or the latest version, has received a few amendments after speaking with legal, correct, JD?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So in that sense, there's not many tweaks, but a few. But in order to do third reading, we need to first of all approve the changes before third reading. So, Councillor Selk.
I'd like to move or adopt the changes to bylaw 1695, non-residential property tax incentive bylaw.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, now I need someone to move third reading. Councillor Drew?
I'll move third reading of bylaw 1695, non-residential property tax incentive.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. So, Jeff, if I understand properly, there was no opposition to this bylaw, or was there any positive feedback, or no feedback?
No, we didn't get any external feedback on
Okay, so no one is in a hurry to use that bylaw.
it. Well, there is someone that's anxious to use it, so they were just wondering when it would be ready. But yeah, we will have an applicant fairly shortly, I think, yes.
Okay, well, somebody will do our town good. Thank you. All right, so let's go to the business of the day, under 7. Other business. Indoor recreation facility. I appreciate administration having put all those numbers together. I have distributed one packet. I have tried to analyze it the best I could and try to make sense of it and try to understand the whole logistic of it all and what it meant. And so I think you also have seen in the CAO report the concern of our CAO. And Jeff, maybe if you want to speak to your report, I would appreciate that instead of waiting for that later on. So it is really the opportune moment.
Well, my comments are really just questions to council. I didn't really have a statement per se. Just saying one of your challenges is, and Dr. Clark spoke to it, one of your challenges is interpreting that 66% of what I called indifference in my letter, but they didn't take the chance to respond. I don't know how to interpret that. I don't have a commentary on that at all. We could all make 1,000 assumptions, quite literally, on what that means. So I was just posting questions that we had talked about in the office and how to interpret it, and otherwise not having as far as the survey is concerned, just really it's an interpretation issue, is what we see.
All right. So That survey is, as we could see from the comment of Dr. Clark, was not a good survey, and that's something that I had mentioned from the very beginning. Because it doesn't fulfill the purpose truly that we were after. And that's unfortunate.
But on the other hand, he also said that the survey's 56%, let's go ahead, full steam ahead, and let's do this thing. So I'm kind of sitting here going, it's not good, but it's good enough to go ahead.
Okay,
That's just, those are his words, not mine.
so what's your feeling, Councillor?
No, I just, we can argue about that, but at the end of his summary, he said, let's go ahead because this is what the survey said. So, we're using the survey for the data that's collected, and we're using it to say, let's go ahead because that's what it's, you can't say on one hand it's not good, and then on the other hand, let's go ahead because there's 56.
Okay, so that's an interesting comment. What is certain, the survey teaches us a few things. The teacher, and I think it already has been said. It says in one hand that people would like it, but like anybody, we all like things. It's true. So the question is, in its own way, misleading. Because it did not have the proper background which the Cochrane survey had, which was, if you had to prioritize, what would you prioritize? And that was not included and debated around this table, but deemed not to be a worthwhile question. So that's quite okay. It is what it is. But what the survey definitely shows is that there's an appetite to have indoors activities. That cannot be denied. That to me is probably what I took out of that. But doesn't mean that we are going to spend $1 million and hoping to see it. That's probably the question that he posed.
I find it strange that back in October we agreed to $1 million in principle. We then spent many hours discussing a survey, and we can't go forward without a survey. We have the survey. Those that don't want the rec center interpret it their way. Those that want the rec center interpret it their way. What was the purpose of the rec center? Hours and hours and hours of discussing it if we were just going to throw it in the garbage and pretend it didn't exist. Because that's frustrating me no end right now, because we talked about the survey and that we could not move ahead until we had the survey. And now we're not willing to move ahead.
No, because, okay, can I address something there, if you don't mind me telling you? I think, if you remember, when I said so many times, we need a needs assessment before we even put a building towards this idea. We need to know what it is that the people want, so that we can build something that accommodates their needs and not be imposed upon by the other way around. And that's what he said. He said we went about it the wrong way. And I think he was right. Anyways, Councillor Selk, Councillor Folk.
I don't know about the rest of you. I've talked to dozens of people in this community, and they've all told me what they want in their rec center. I don't know what, maybe don't think we know what we want in there. They've mentioned a walking track. They've mentioned pickleball. They mentioned Brad Beach, there's about 8 teams that want to play basketball in there. We've got mothers that want to go there for their children, so they can go do their walking, and somebody else can watch their children in a play area. We discussed this ad nauseum, what can go into that facility. I don't know why people don't know what's going to go in there, what we've done is talk about the last 4 months.
But if you look at the results of all what you mentioned, it maybe doesn't really speak at the same level as you think it is. Because when I start to do the percentages, it doesn't really speak to the same volume. I mean, if you look at it, the walking track was 23% of the respondents. The climbing wall, 19%. The pickleball, 18%. The basketball, 18%. The swimming pool, suppose we only take those who responded to the word swimming pool, that's 14% of the respondents. So those are the 5 most important views that people wanted. The next 5 important views was a volleyball, 12%, the indoor playground, 10%, and that's only 3% of the household, by the way. Badminton, 41 response, 8%. Indoor soccer, 8%. Bowling, 8, lawn bowling, 8%. So when you start to look at a lawn bowling and you turn it into what does it mean in terms of householders, it's 2% of the householders in this town. So we can't ignore also the number of respondents. Yes, Councillor Selk, I see you. Go ahead.
I just want to finish up here.
Go ahead.
You and I are never going to agree on the survey, so I won't say anything else about the survey.
But
No, we're not going to agree about it, so why are we
no,
talking about it?
but you know something that I will tell you, in my analysis, in my saying at the end, I really say it makes sense to find symbiotic opportunities. It makes sense.
To some people, what makes sense to you may not make sense to
But
Dr.
it makes
Clark that you were
sense
talking
if we are looking for ways to accommodate more indoor activities. It makes sense to look for partnerships. It makes sense to have one pool of fundraisers. That makes sense to me, anyways. Councillor Selk.
I would prefer not to bludgeon this thing to death anymore, which is what we're doing here. I think Dr. Clark has presented something that's plausible, which I like, and that's, we say that we're going to commit $1 million. We have reservations with the sewer treatment plant. We've already said there's $1 million in capital reserves, which is not recreation reserves, it's capital reserves for things like, sewer plants. So we commit the $1 million, then that leaves the ball in their court to raise the rest of the money, and they've got a year to do it. And if they don't, this is done, once and for all.
Well,
Got a motion?
Councillor
I would
Bengry.
be prepared to make a motion to that.
Okay, can you give Councillor Bengry a chance?
I'm not gonna be very popular, but I'm prepared to make a motion right now. As I've thought about this for the past week, especially over the weekend, where I've had a lot of time, there's some preamble, and if you'll give me the floor, I'll do it. Whereas MSI funding has been substantially reduced and possibly will be discontinued, and whereas other provincial and federal grants have been also reduced and even discontinued, and as a council working with full transparency, and we enter into trying to establish our mill rate budget for 2021, and as we as a council have been aware of major repairs, replacements, and additions to our treatment plants, especially our sewer treatment plant, and also being aware of needed repairs and replacements of underground infrastructure of supply and existing lines, both residential and commercial, and the need for ongoing repairs to road services and sidewalks. After reviewing the results of the recent survey and responses that the building of a recreation center would be in order, however, in the same survey, the question as to using taxes for the building and ongoing maintenance and operational costs were not acceptable. Even a small increase to annual taxes were unacceptable. And being aware of no support from the Cardston County and Western School Division, therefore, let it be resolved that I make motion that this mayor and council can no longer support the building of a 16,000 square foot recreation center, and that this item be removed from the 2021 operational and capital budgets.
Okay. Please speak to it.
So are we saying in this motion that we are abandoning a rec center?
It's not what is,
That's
No.
what it sounds
No.
like to me.
We're removing it from the setting of our mill rate, budget for 2021. It does not say that the new council can't take it on as theirs, but in this year, 2021 operational and capital budgets.
okay. Can I answer your question?
No,
Did you have, sorry, I'm just trying to say, did you say the 16,000 square foot?
Yes,
I thought you had qualified it.
the building of a 16,000 square foot recreation center. And that this item be removed from the 2021 operational and capital budgets.
Okay,
So-
sorry, Councillor.
So I have a problem with that motion because Dr. Clark just came here and poured out his heart and said, hey, we want to work with you guys. And if you will commit the money, let us go after the other $1 million that we want. Let us go after some grants. Let us do whatever we need to do. And Councillor Selk basically said, that's a good deal for us because it's in their court. We commit the money, they go after it. If they don't get it, it's done. I'd rather, me personally, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I'd rather go down that road
Okay,
than
fair
that's how I
enough,
feel.
fair enough. So can I ask then a question? Because you're making a good point. But here is a question then that I have. How do we deal with the need of the MSI this year, next year, the year after, the year after? We have 4 more capital budget to deal with. Councillor Du,
Well,
how do we deal with that?
I think that in our economic situation, I believe the taxes are going to go up whether people want them or not. And that's the situation that the provincial government's put us in. I don't know if there's how much reserve money we have or where we can draw from that, but
Yeah, that's the unknown, right? That's what administration has to deal with, I suppose.
A couple of things. Province has committed to topping up and actually giving us a little more in MSI this year.
Which we got.
So we are going to use that. Now, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's about $4 million in reserves in various chunks. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so $1 million can be committed to this facility, and if it doesn't happen because they didn't raise the extra $1 million, then $1 million goes back into reserves, and Bob's your uncle, we're in good shape. But as for the MSI, we know what's going down, and we can talk about our infrastructure, and we've known for, well, let's see, 20 years we've got an infrastructure deficit, because we talked about it when I was on council 20 years ago, and we've been working on it. And it's not changed in 20 years, other than we keep working on it. Now, I have a question as well. Jeff, the money that the province committed for shovel-ready projects, did we get that money? That was about $400,000, wasn't it? And that was supposed to go to the twinning of the sewer.
Oh, right, yeah, so sorry, I wasn't sure what you're referring to. Yes, that's where we're gonna be, mid-April, we'll be starting that twinning project.
Okay, so we've got that. Now, we
Correct.
know we have some streets that we need to work on, particularly Second Avenue this year. But we can cover that with the MSI money we are getting this year, because don't we already have the extra $300,000 in MSI money that's from previous years that's going to the rec center? Is that correct?
So how you had it what's the word I want here? I had structured, prior to Christmas was 300,000 of MSI. We had, sorry, don't hold me to the exact numbers here, but roughly after 2020, there would be about 460,000 in rec reserves. And then we were going to tax another 270-ish in this year, which was going to be potentially spent in year to get to 700,000 plus the 300,000 in MSI, which got you, again, not precisely, but close to $1 million.
Okay, so when you say tax work, we had already built that into previous budgets because we were reserving $250,000 a year in the rec. Is that correct?
So that came at the expense of anything that was in the rec master plan. Correct. So this year and next year, essentially, it's kicked all those things down the road with the same tax implication that we've had historically. I think that's pretty
So
clear.
there's some tot lots and some things like that probably aren't going to get rejuvenated this year or possibly next. But the money is there. And we're not talking about capital. We're not talking about the major capital reserve that we've got for the sewer treatment plant. So, all of this to say, we have figured out where the money's coming from. So we can earmark it for this. All we're doing is making a commitment to this group of people who want to raise $1 million to provide a facility that would be a benefit to the town of Cardston. So, I think what we need to do procedurally, Mayor, is that you have a motion on the floor. You probably need to vote on that one. And then I'm prepared to make another motion that goes along in line with what Dr. Clark said. So, Mayor,
Yeah, it's
call the
absolutely,
question.
it's absolutely right. We're going to call the question if there is no more question or comment. My only comment will be that although I support the idea of finding indoor rec space, I really truly do not support it in this 2021 budget. So the motion will be defeated and it's fine. It's no problem. But we have not, there is a motion there and we're going to put it through a vote, but I can see through whichever way it's going that it's going to go a different way. And that's perfectly okay. That's what you call democracy. So I'm going to call the question to the motion made by Councillor Bengry, which is to remove this item from the 2021 budget. Doesn't mean that it's not to find money for future recreation. It's not what it means. It just simply means to remove it from the 2021 budget so that we can establish our mill rate and go with that without that large item there. It does not mean that we do not want to see a facility. That's, want to clarify that idea. Okay, so all in favor? And in favor of the motion, sorry. All in favor? Against? Thank you. So the motion is defeated. And that is fine. So Councillor Selk, go ahead.
Okay. If you'll indulge me for just a second.
Absolutely, Councillor. I love you to indulge you. You have waited 6 months for that day.
I was going to say 3.5 years, but that's okay.
Well, not truly.
Okay, just as a preamble, on the understanding that the Dr. Clark and his associates will raise the $1 million. There's additional funds, they have to raise that too. I'm prepared to make a motion that we remove in principle, or that we set aside $1 million, we remove the in principle clause, and that we set that money aside from reserve and MSI for the building of the recreation facility, and that they have 1 year to generate the funds required to build it.
Okay, it's a good motion. So, You're going to breathe very well afterwards, and you'll have a good
Where's
night's
that box of
sleep.
Kleenex?
Councillor Drew?
So I just have a question for Jeff. When it comes to mill rate, how does this affect that process for
Sure.
this 2021?
So that is literally the $1 million question, Councillor, quite literally. And I appreciate the discussion and the motion, and these are the things you have to grapple with as a group. So congratulations on that, whether you like it or not. But if I could, and I don't like to speak to motions on the table, I want to preface that right now, but I do want to say, you are starting at the next meeting going to start dealing with putting that mill rate budget together. And so you will have greater context in the next meeting. Now, I don't have any trouble at all, Councillor Selk, when we present that's accommodated within the budget. Right, I think that's reasonable. We had it in December, we took it out to balance with the intention that it was going to be back on the table before you set the mill rate. But you will have to then debate the pros and cons of that being back in the budget and what that's at the expense of. And you saw in my CEO report how we've been trying to work through it right now and saying, how can we stabilize MSI over the years? And so that 300,000 may be back for debate, just how we want to manage that before we get to May, whatever the date is where you're going to set mill rate, but the first council meeting in May. And so you are going to be discussing the whole budget and particularly how you're going to accommodate that $1 million over the next couple of meetings for sure.
Councillor Bob?
So with all the discussion that's been going on, I've doing some math here, and regardless of the fact that we don't have a full representation of our community, when you add up the totals, not everybody, with 46% don't want to pay anything extra, right? Nothing. But that's neither here or there, because we already know that the mill rate has to increase by around 2% anyway. But there are 54% at one variable level or another that are willing to pay more. You've got 20% that are prepared to pay up to $50 more. You've got 19% are willing to pay up to somewhere between $50 and $100. You got 11% that are saying they're going to pay between $100 and $200, and you got 4% that said they'd be willing to pay $200. So there are 54% of the people that are willing to pay more to see this facility go forward.
From the survey.
From the survey.
From the survey.
Yeah, from the survey. So.
From the survey.
Yeah,
That
from
is
the survey.
not- That is not the 66% that never opened.
No, I know
Never
that. I
gave us
realize
a
that. I'm
glimpse
just
of
saying.
what they want, unfortunately. And it's easy to say, well, you didn't vote, so too bad, so sad, you pay for it. But it's really a sad way to look at it, right? Okay, so I like the concept of Dr. Clark. I like the idea that they are trying to raise $1 million, but they need a commitment. I totally understand it, but I wish that commitment was starting 2022, moving on. Because I think, to me, in terms of budgeting, with the operational and a capital expenditure, it would make total sense. That would make sense. Therefore, I cannot support the motion the way it is right now. But I appreciate, I'm just telling you how I feel. But I appreciate his desire to see the plan he presented. I think it's on the right direction. Except that I feel for this budget, with all the difficulty that it is to deal with the uncertainty, I'd rather be more cautious. If this council doesn't want to be cautious or feel that money will come, I appreciate that, but it's not my view. So we're going to call the vote.
One more thing there.
Please
Like
go ahead.
recorded vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, are in favor of this motion? Okay. Against? And like I say one more time, I appreciate the desire to get the money and to raise that fund, absolutely. I support that wholeheartedly, but not in this budget. So that's what I also want the world to know.
Can I make a comment, or is it too late to make a comment?
No,
I
go
wouldn't mind
ahead.
making a comment. I just want to go on record. I support the idea of the rec center. I just feel this is not the right year, the timing. That's the only reason I'm against. The timing to me is not right. So, that's why.
No, it's fine, and I want to congratulate all of you who worked so hard to come to that day. And Councillor Selk, congratulations. You made a great case. Okay. And I appreciate the democratic process. It really is a wonderful process. I really appreciate the process. I really do. All right, so on the 7B, so next steps, I don't know what you want me to deal with next steps.
Well,
Because
since
it's
the
a
motion,
budget.
my mind is different on this. So one of my fears of that motion, and it's fine, I think I understand the intent, is that we've said we're now committed to the ongoing operational costs, whatever they may be.
Yep.
And I don't know what that is yet. So I don't know what to bring you next month yet, because the other thing I don't know, and then I did appreciate Dr. Clark's presentation and some of that discussion, that it felt like there was still that window to talk about what is this thing as far as size and scale and location and all that stuff. So I've got a little work to do to figure out what is next, because I have no idea within $100,000 what the operational costs every year of this thing are going to be. And so we've got to get that sorted out. A few things like that.
Comments on here. There's going to be a discussion we're going to have in closed session regarding municipal operations. I'll have some thoughts on there with respect to ongoing operations.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? We've committed the money. We haven't said how big this facility is going to be. There's still some of that has to happen. And I wonder if that's something that we might be talking about as far as it was started at 8,500 square feet and now it's at 17,000. It's just
19,000.
Is there a way to, I don't want to downsize it, but is there a way to make it a little bit more palatable if it's not as
Councillor Selk.
I like the direction of council. The only thing I would say though is that I think as a council, we've got to be open-minded to the notion that there might be a symbiotic relationship.
Well, that's what I'm looking for.
Sure. Right, so we need to be open to that discussion. It can't be so dogmatic that, nope, it's going here and that's it. I think we have to be open to that conversation. So maybe that's a little preliminary to talk about, you know, what size is this going to be? Because, yeah, I can honestly say that I think I'm much more open-minded about that.
Well, in talking with Dr. Clark, he feels that maybe we need to scale down. But I don't know.
Go ahead, Councillor.
So I just, in healthcare setting, which I'm not really part of anymore, but anyways, there were multi-facilities, so they had, they had a hospital, but they also had a doctor's clinic, and so they housed things in the same facility, but they had many options for people to come at one place, and then we talked about that symbiotic relationship. That's something that I'd be willing to explore as well, because if we build one building and we have everything that we need, of course, it's a process.
Well, I really believe, and I wrote it inside there, and I had sent that 2 weeks ago to Chad before this presentation, that the only way to really get that in time of tight money is to try to get one pool of donors and try to see if we can grow the pool. If that is the direction where we want to go, then the more we can put our efforts together, the more chance there is to be successful.
Can I ask
Go ahead.
of Jeff? When we were discussing a rec center up there at the golf course and combining the two, just refresh my memory, is there enough room up there to do both together?
I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable saying exact, because I don't know if we're trying to add 19,000 square feet onto the end of the clubhouse, or if it's, because that's a different monster, right?
Yeah.
That's a big, big building, so to be determined, I guess that's from the administration's point of view. I'm not confident that I'm gonna know what your budget, your operational and capital costs are gonna be by April, when we're really kind of open to exploring a whole bunch of different ideas. That's gonna take us in a lot of directions. But I think Councillor Selk and Gerry both mentioned, and it feels like that's the consensus, that you guys are okay if we look at those partnerships and at least bring back a couple of options for you to consider, other than the standalone on that site. I just want to make sure we're all, I don't want to start headed down some rabbit hole that we're not all on side with.
Councillor Bengry?
I don't want to drag this out along with Councillor Selk making that suggestion, but is location a problem with working out figures for
No.
infrastructure and everything else?
No, I don't think location's a problem. I think you guys know, I don't think that's the ideal location for what is currently designed, the 19,000 square feet, but it's not a problem that it's there. The question for you guys, because it's your mandate, is it the best use of the land that's there? And so we'll have to start looking at those kind of things.
So Jeff, when you're saying best, are you talking about the EJ Wood?
Yeah, top of EJ Wood. Yeah, so you could have a pretty good debate, I think, of whether that's the best use long term. I think that's a good debate for you to have. And so that's just stuff we can discuss going forward. So kind of thinking on the go here on this. So as far as the operational piece, and I think this is reasonable, we don't need to concern ourselves with operations in the 2021 year. That's what it feels like to me. I don't think they're finding that pot of gold in May. Right? So, well, okay, maybe, and that's something. But, it may be that we have to put a placeholder number in the next 2 years' operational budgets that we all know going in has to be reviewed as we get a little closer. Because again, your guess. But I did appreciate Dr. Carter's acknowledging a significant operational deficit on a facility like that. They're not unaware, not the double negative, but they're aware that those things come in. So that's good.
Thank you very much. Was good discussion. All in favor? Thank you very much. Let's reconvene.
Motion to
You
go
already
back
did
in.
that.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Okay. So, let's carry on. The CAO report, we kind of talked about.
You jumped over some things, Mayor.
Oh, where am I? Oh, the letter to Mr. Madhu.
Yep.
I'm sorry, my mask is starting to give me the itch, and I feel like a rabbit trying to.
Carbon monoxide
Absolutely
levels are getting
terrible.
high up there, eh?
I'm feeling itchy. I'm so sorry. 7B, letter to Mr. Madhu, of Justice and the Minister of Justice and
Haven't seen the letter yet.
Solicitor
It's in there.
General. So there is a letter there
Where is it?
that we wanted to send regarding the policing. You have not written that letter yet.
Yeah,
It's-
it's there.
It's here.
Where is it under?
Right on it.
It was just added, Mayor, so you probably.
So I don't.
7B.
7B. Oh, no, mine isn't either.
I don't have it either. I'm sorry.
Mine did.
I got 7B, but it ain't the letter.
Okay, so the letter needed to address two issues. One was the policing issues that we have about the mask, the enforcement, and the way courts deal with that.
Let me just go over here, Mayor.
And the other one had to do, well, no, I knew what it was. Now you just caught my trend of
Derailed
thought.
your train.
The other one was
The new one
to
in there.
support the provincial prosecutors,
Yeah, it's there.
to ask the
7B.
provincial prosecutor to implement stricter or more conditions for repeat offenders upon their release. What the RCMP is dealing with is a total nightmare.
Oh, there it is.
They will prosecute, or they will arrest somebody, or they will serve somebody that is a repeat offender, goes to court, they'll pass a lot of time doing their case, and then they're released with no conditions strict enough to enforce. Therefore, those repeat offenders carry on being repeat offenders with no system to stop the nonsense.
Mayor, I think just for context, for Councillor Drew and Bengry and the mayor, this came from the most recent policing committee meeting. And Sergeant Wright has asked if the town, they are pushing this from their point of
You
view
have
as
the
well,
letter?
through their people.
Should be.
But they've asked that the town will lend some political support to this idea of increasing the conditions or making them more valid, let's say.
I don't have the letter. I don't have the letter, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll have to get you a copy, Mayor.
Okay, that's okay.
And the second was that essentially the Crown prosecutor said they will not enforce masking bylaw tickets or masking tickets under the health order anymore. And so that the only way they're telling the RCMP that if your municipality will write a bylaw and then your municipality will pay to have each one enforced, that's about the only way you're going to do it. The problem is it probably costs us about $1,000 a ticket to try and enforce it.
$100 ticket.
And so the letter also states that we would ask that the province correct the legislation to allow for the Crown prosecutors to prosecute it. We don't get the luxury of Crown prosecutors prosecuting bylaw tickets, like the RCMP, or if we write provincial tickets, they do, but not bylaw tickets. And so we have to defend those ourselves. And I just put on there, as masks are a matter of public health and health is jurisdiction of the province, we feel the province should enable the local enforcement agencies with proper legislation to deal with the pandemic. So Sergeant Wright has looked at this and supports the letter.
Very much.
And if council's okay with it, a resolution would be required.
Okay, are you all able to see that letter now? I have it now.
I've refreshed a number of times, it's still not coming up, so.
Here, Councillor, if you want to have a look at it, I just read it. Okay, Councillor Brown, you willing to put a motion forward
Yep, I make a motion to send the letter to Minister Madhu of Justice and Solicitor General
Okay,
on behalf of council in regards to.
thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right. The next item is the AUMA Municipal Leaders Caucus. It's coming up in April. There is 3 days of it. So it costs about $50 per participant, I believe, this time around. It's 2 sessions on Thursday and Friday are in the morning from 9 to 12, and the one on Wednesday is from 6 to 8 or 6 to 9?
3 to 6.
3 to 6, okay. All right. So as you could see, there's a lot of items that are going to be covered. Could prove to be interesting. There are some time where you can ask questions to the ministers, and there is a chance to see the member of the opposition, there's a member of the government. Anyways, it's always normally an interesting time. So can you let me know who would like to attend?
No, question. If we're going to participate in this, wouldn't that come out of our education funding that we each have, that none of us have even used, I don't think, yet?
Well, that's a very good question.
You know, that's where that funding could come from.
That could very well be a nice way to use that money for that purpose.
That's what I'm thinking, because it's an education engagement session.
Broadcasted here, Jeff.
Okay.
I would be interested in.
Okay.
One thing is this room isn't available for those days. So
No.
if you want to attend, you're in your
Yeah. Home.
jammies at home.
Yeah. Anyway, I will participate because I find those fairly interesting.
What's the dates?
How quickly do we need to
April
let you know,
14th
Mayor,
to
if
the
we're interested in
16th.
participating?
There is a time
us know. We
frame
need to
for.
pay
Let me have a look. What does it say here?
Just say it depends on if.
So it's April 14, 15, 16. Those are the date.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they gave us a time frame for registration, but I'm sure there must be one online. Jeff, you have any idea about that? No? No. Okay. I don't really think that they're going to reject anybody, to tell you the truth. So if some of you know now, let us know. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
I'm not sure yet.
I'm not sure yet, but I'd like to.
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, it's all right. So at the next meeting,
We have till April 12th.
April 12th, so perfect. So in the next CCW or the meeting afterwards, we still have enough time. Yes.
Mayor, I should have asked this at the beginning. I'm on the assessment review board, and I have 2 assessment reviews, which are happening Thursday and Friday.
This Thursday, this
Yes,
Friday?
this Thursday and
Okay.
Friday, and they're all day.
Okay.
We got 16 from one county alone.
Oh, gosh.
Are my per diems, if they're covered by the assessment?
They're normally, the per diem are paid by OSC.
Thank
But you can have Jeff verify that, but I'm pretty sure, Jill, am I correct? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
OSC get the money and they pay you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so that's the way. You're a lucky guy.
Yeah, thank you.
That proved to be interesting. That's a consequence of COVID. No fun. Okay, I feel for the people, I can tell you that. Okay. Business arising from the delegation. So I really think at this point that it's been taken care of. There has been a motion. and it's moving forward, correct? Any more discussion? No, thank you. Mr. Atkins, there is nothing there. So let's go into the committee and other reports. The CAO report, Jeff, you had quite a bit of information there. There is definitely a lot that you had sounded some warning bells, and I guess thank you for that. I appreciate you taking that lead, letting us know your concerns. Committee reports, there's quite a few of them there for your information. Is there anybody who needs to address anything in those reports? No? Okay. The correspondence, the Levitt and Etna Irrigation District. Councillor Bengry, is that you?
Yes.
And you have two meetings the same day. When was it? March 5th? March
25th.
25th, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to do that for us?
That's right.
Okay. So the Farm Safety Center, I didn't really quite didn't know what to make out of this one exactly. We offer a donation every year regarding that program. The letter was a lengthy letter trying to tell us that I could not do the program the way they intended to, that Mrs. Nelson is retiring after 20 years of service or 25 years, that there is a new fellow that's going to take over. The particulars are there, so I didn't know, Jeff, if you will contact him or wish him well or whatever.
I didn't read a request for funding in this.
Well, we always give them some money, but I can't remember the amount.
It's not consistent, it's been on a request.
You know, it was maybe 500 at the most, 200 possibly. I can't remember.
So I see Marion's still our CEO here.
Yeah, and so the letter is addressed to Marion, by the way. But this is why I thought if you contacted this new fellow, maybe you could let him know who the CEO is.
Marion.
Okay, there is okay, so do you want a resolution for a donation, or are you going to look after that in your pocket of money that you have?
Make a resolution, otherwise we won't be.
What's they asking for?
Okay, so do you,
It doesn't say, so why would we?
doesn't say if it.
Why would we wait until we hear how much they're asking for?
so do you want to make a resolution? Is that what you say?
I don't.
No? Okay, all right, well.
I think we're holding tight until they actually ask for something, aren't we?
Yeah, they haven't.
Well, they have the donation request inside there. They're just saying that they wish that we will carry on our donation, but I don't remember what we gave them.
Maybe a couple $100.
That's about it.
Okay,
Well,
well,
it's only
if
a couple $100 and just.
Okay,
if it'll make things easier, then I'll
Can
make
you
a
make a
motion to give
motion?
whatever we gave in the past.
right, okay.
Sure.
Last year. All in favor? Thank you. Yeah, because I couldn't remember the amount we gave them. Mrs. Tanya Thorne, AUMA.
Just kidding.
So it's always a good update. There's always good information there. The Honorable Rick McIver, that's an interesting thing about the DRP. Now it's a 90-10. Kind of split. 10% has to be paid by the municipalities. There is a little bit more stringent ruling regarding how you can apply for support if you have a flood, if you're victim of a flood. The town of Vauxhall, well, I think it's a little bit premature because we don't have the full result of the survey that was done by the government.
I'm just curious, Mayor. In the first line of the third paragraph, the staggering cost should be enough of a deterrent to stop the consideration to not proceed. Isn't that a double negative?
Of course it is.
So I'm not sure if they want to proceed or not proceed, or proceed not to proceed.
Well, I think what they're trying to say, they're happy with the RCMP. Thank you very much. So the last letter is what's on the back of your packet. It's a letter from Barry Morishida talking about the same meetings that are coming up, the 14th, 15th, and 16th of April. Okay?
There was one other letter, you don't have it in your print one, Mayor, but it was.
Oh, yes, there was a letter.
You have it in your electronic version.
Yes, hold on.
I think we printed it.
Okay, that was a letter that was sent by Mrs. Jackie Miller-Williams. And that letter, is that the one we're referring to? And showing all the different positions that she had made here and on other newspaper, where it talks about, if I remember right, somewhere, about the need for a symbiotic relationship. Okay, so that is there. The town would be much better served to develop a clubhouse at the golf course, which could perhaps be used in a symbiotic way for recreation and other purposes, which kind of go along with what Dr. Clark was somewhat proposing. So that was something I wanted to
Mayor,
mention.
in the town of Vauxhall letter, they spelt minister wrong. I don't know if we want to let them know that, but
Send it to Marion.
going to the minister, it might be
Okay,
nice to spell
all
that
right.
correctly.
Well, it's a double negative and they spelled minister wrong.
Sorry.
We're not going to get into grammar and spelling.
Ryan, we are quite happy to have you here. Thank you. We just finished all our regular business, except that normally for a public hearing we have to wait the right time. So,
Question,
go ahead.
that master water treatment services agreement, is that what we're dealing with right now? Is that the next thing? We haven't talked about it yet.
No, Councillor, we're doing the
We're
intermunicipal.
in
development
camera?
plan.
Municipal.
Huh?
We're gonna be talking about the intermunicipal development plan.
And that's gonna be part of that discussion.
No, it will not. That's a closed
Separate.
session item you're referring to.
What about this then?
I don't know which one.
Okay, I'm pointing at the master water treatment and services agreement.
That's a closed
Part of the
session.
closed session.
Oh, that
That's
is part of the
Okay,
list,
well,
yeah.
that's what I wanna know. That's what I'm asking. You don't know these points.
Okay, no problem. So, Jeff, I'm not so sure how do you want me to proceed at this time?
Take a 10-minute break and.
Okay, all right, fine. Thank you very much. So somebody makes a motion to take a break, Councillor?
Make a motion to just take a 10-minute break.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor?
The Zoom meeting set up because one of the delegations is coming virtually, so we're just.
Okay, thank you very much.
Gives me time to drink some of that water, eh?
Let's get ourselves going here.
Make a motion to reconvene.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Councillor Court, can you bring us into a public hearing? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Welcome to our gallery, Councillor Quinton, Councillor Nils, Jill, and to our Channel 32, Corey McCarthy, and foremost, Ryan from OSC. Thank you so much. And we are there to discuss the Ormond River Service Commission and the work you've done for us in the IMDP, the IDP. IMDP. Well, it's called IDP, truly. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, members of council. Nice to be here tonight. I want to thank Jeff for allowing us to do this a little bit later than usual, so to accommodate schedules, particularly my own. Do appreciate that. Tonight, talking about the intermunicipal development plan with Cardston County. As you know, I'd like to give you a quick summary of the document, how we got to where we are now, and considerations moving forward. Talk about some of the submissions received with respect to the public hearing. So an intermunicipal development plan, as you know, this is a mandatory document that the province requires all municipalities to enter into. This is a new document. We do have a current one from a number of years back that's a very sort of sparse and simple document, so we've looked to build upon that and address all the matters required by the province under Section 631 of the MGA. And those sections have been expanded by the legislature in the last couple of years to include matters like future land use, the natural environment, transportation systems, and whereas IDPs used to be simple, more referral-oriented documents, and that's all the requirements were, in fact, was for referral requirements and dispute resolution, stuff like that. The province chose to expand those requirements, sort of work toward the outcomes, both in the regional plan, planning, cooperation, and integration, and just sort of best practices when municipalities interact with one another, potentially pursue mutually positive outcomes like joint development, stuff like that. And in the end, we'll share information and have conversations prior to decisions being made. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd hit a few of the highlights in the plan. The plan area is really the meat of the document. Within that, the policies apply. We talk about generally future urban expansion directions. We recognize some of the existing land uses and growth constraints in the plan area, like the waste transfer buffer and the sewage lagoon buffer and other topographical considerations like Lee Creek. One of the main thrusts of this plan, and with most intermunicipal development plans in the region, in my experience, is to deal with matters that that we are empowered to deal with under AOPA, which is the Ag Operations Practices Act. And Section 20 of that Act allows us municipalities to establish what are referred to as land use provisions in an intermunicipal development plan or a municipal development plan. So I draw your attention to Map 2, which establishes what we refer to as a confined feeding operation exclusion area. Now, the guidance from the NRCB, which deals with confined feeding operations, since for about 20 years or so, when AOPA was brought about, and the authority to deal with these developments was taken away from municipalities, they've said to us that exclusionary zoning is a recommended approach. It's an all-or-nothing type approach that precludes the establishment of confined feeding operations. Now, this can be challenging for municipalities, particularly for rural municipalities. And we've seen this in the region. It can be a point of conflict. And there's often some negotiation that goes on. And I think I'll be circling back to this matter and drawing your attention to a map that the county has recently produced, following up on yesterday's public hearing at the county council meeting, which I attended. But before I get to that, I'd like to go over a list of relatively simple, straightforward changes. Now, these changes were talked about at the Thursday IDP committee meeting. And we had a few council representatives there, and we have the benefit of a few county council representatives here tonight with us. I won't touch on all of these because most of them are straightforward. I'm referring to this document with some of the green highlighting. Where I would draw your attention to is policy 5.8.3. Now this gives us a little overview of the annexation process. And the annexation process is dealt with separately in the Act, in Division 6 of the Act. Intermunicipal development plans often speak to annexation, maybe set the stage for future annexation, but they don't have to do that. And this document doesn't do that apart from relaying some of the information that's straight out of the Municipal Government Act. However, we did receive a representation from Chief Mountain Gas Co-op looking to be recognized, in particular, if I understand it right, the existence of their a franchise agreement for the lands in the plan area. And so to that end, Madam Chair, it's been proposed that we recognize utility companies and other service providers and ensure that they are given the benefit of consultation early on in the annexation process. I believe that we will receive a submission from the Chief Mountain Gas Co-op tonight, later in the public hearing. So that language is something to note. Right underneath that, page 35, the suggestion to add a new policy. So this matter was discussed at the committee level. And what was agreed upon generally was that it would be good to make sure that the town's concerns are conveyed in this document with respect to ensuring that we are getting the amount of information that is necessary to support an informed decision, whether it's in a development within the town on the boundary or within the county in the plan area. And so that information can be shared and well understood, and impacts like noise, smells, and other potential impacts can be mitigated where necessary. So this is the policy that I've drafted up, and will be the first time that the committee members have seen it. So I'd highlight that. The map edits, small map edits there noted. The change to map 3 is maybe the only sort of substantial one, whereby the future land use area, it's been proposed by the committee that we change this over from primarily residential to primarily industrial or mixed. So with that, Madam Chair, I would just circle back, as I mentioned, to one more, or to what I already discussed, and that's the CFO exclusion area, and then I will. That's all I have to say for now. So this map, with the purple and the green, again, was the map that Cardston County has forwarded us, and the purple color conveys I think it's fair to say, agreed upon CFO exclusion area. The green area identifies the area that they would like to see removed. And I don't have too much in terms of context there, but that's what's been sent to myself. Now, you will remember, Madam Chair and the members of the committee, that at the committee meeting on Thursday, we removed the most easterly half mile.
Right.
So the quarter sections immediately east of the area shaded in green from the CFO exclusion area.
Okay, so Ryan, do we have any idea why that was removed?
Madam Chair, I have a little bit of context for that. I wonder if it's prudent if Cardston County representatives want to speak to that.
Okay.
I wonder if I could just say one last thing here,
Okay.
and hand over the podium. I handed out one other drawing here, and I wanted to do this so to give you the planning context and all the information around the CFO approval process in order to support an informed decision for yourself tonight. So these are two hypothetical drawings, and these are illustrating what's referred to as the MDS, the minimum distance separation buffer. This is what the NRCB uses. So when an application comes in, they look at the number of animals and the types of animals. And they have a spreadsheet that generates a buffer based on the number of types of animals, which of course there's a correlation with the manure production and odor generation. And the Category 1 MDS is the most far-reaching MDS. So that's in a situation where, say, a CFO, which is in the middle of that circle, is adjacent to an urban center, an hamlet, or an incorporated municipality. So in this hypothetical scenario with the 1,000 beef finishers, a Category 1 MDS is 380 meters. A Category 4 MDS, which is a typical rural setting, maybe just the odd farmstead or single lot country residential parcel, you'd see a lesser MDS. I think I may have those numbers mixed up. The further reaching one is the 1,014 meters, and the smaller one is 380. The point I'm trying to make, and I guess before I say that, the second example at the bottom of the page shows a larger mixed operation, 550 hogs, etc., and you see there's a further reaching MDS, as much as 2,000 meters. And again, I think I mixed up those colors there.
Your numbers are
yeah.
reversed.
They're just reversed.
That means that has to be that far away from the community itself?
From the feedlot operation, from the closest manure storage area or feedlot area to a dwelling.
Yeah.
So what municipalities generally find is that this minimum distance separation isn't the separation distance that they would expect, so to ensure land use compatibility. And again, this goes back to the way I see it, the reason that the legislature decided to give municipalities the ability to establish land use provisions, and what we typically see again is that exclusionary type zoning. So that's the reason why I supplied that tonight, and I think that's all I would say right now. Thank you.
Okay, so is Councillor Quinton or Councillor Nish willing to address the changes that are proposed on this map? Because we had gone and spoken about that many times and discussed that quite a bit, so I'm surprised of the changes.
Well, after our meetings yesterday, our public hearing, it was determined that all the different municipalities that we deal with wanted an extraordinary amount of land around their communities, and we tried to standardize it with McGrath and with Cardston and with Glenwood and Hillspring, because we felt that giving another municipality a veto over what our residents could do in our county was not in the best interest of our county. So we have no problem with the CFOs going to the west and going to the south, but when we get over on the southeast of communities, we don't see the problem with the CFO. And with this one with Cardston, the Hutterite Brethren of East Cardston have already got a building up on top there, and they'll be needing more area to dispose of their manure, and so they can only apply so much to certain land, and so we decided that in their interest and in interest of other people that live out in that area that have small feeding operations that could be determined to be a problem, we decided that we would like to move the CFO exclusion area back.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that the farm operation, but the disposal of waste is going to be in that area closer to the town?
Well, it'll be determined by the NRCB where they can spread it. But we didn't feel that we wanted to automatically exclude any land from their use, because like Mr. Dick said, that if it's a no CFO area, then the NRCB won't go there. So we didn't want to put the burden on our people in our county to have to not be able to use their land as they see fit.
I understand. Councillor Selk?
So, Councillor Nish, you're saying that the whole green area then gets pushed back, and that becomes the CFO exclusion would be just what's in purple?
Yes.
Which makes it much closer to the town.
Yep.
And that's a problem.
So, Councillor Nish, the feeding operation just west of the Agrodome across 12th Street,
Yeah.
has that been grandfathered in, or what's the situation on that?
The dairy, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that has been grandfathered in because it was prior to when the NRCB took over. They're not allowed to, from what I've been told, they're not allowed to expand. They're allowed to maybe modernize some of the buildings, but they're not allowed to expand their operation.
Okay, then, secondary to that question, what happens with their runoff in the spring and during the storm season?
On the west side of town here?
Yes.
That's determined by the NRCB. We have no jurisdiction as a county over that operation.
But you can't run it into a ditch, right?
No, you're not supposed to.
Okay, so if we stay with this area in green, that is news to us right now, so we kind of need to discuss that as a council. So it's a little bit of a
Catch-22.
new item for us.
Yeah, we had quite a few county residents come and participate yesterday in our hearing, and they all spoke to the fear that they were going to be not able to use their land like they would like to.
Which, at the last meeting when we met together, there was no inkling that was going to be an area, because we already changed that boundary substantially. We
come back a half a mile.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But now we're coming back farther.
Whole mile now, right?
Yeah.
Councillor Selk?
So I'm curious, Councillor Nish, how are, in your deliberations with other municipalities, have you done the same thing? Have you shrunk the CFO?
We have, after our public hearing yesterday, we shrunk everybody's CFO on what we proposed on the east side and of the communities.
Okay. And how was that received in St.
I haven't had any feedback to me since they sent the maps out.
Okay, so Jeff wants to say something.
Councillor Nish, you may not know this, but I'm curious. We scheduled our IDP meeting with the councillors after the due date for wishing to speak at public hearings. And at the meeting we had a few days ago, there was nobody wishing to speak to this item at the county meeting. So I'm curious if these came in late or after, or why didn't we know about them?
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand. How come it's being sprung on us all of a sudden at the last minute?
Well, because of the bulk of the people that spoke against the CFOs were from the McGrath area with their CFO, and after we listened to what they had to say, we decided, as a council, we decided that we should maybe pull it back on all of the CFO areas because it would be the same concern for the rest of the people.
Okay, Councillor Quinton, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think this map is actually physically wrong. I think it's come back too far because I believe we're only going to come back a half mile. Because we wanted an original half mile on Thursday when we talked to you guys.
Right.
I think we're only supposed to come back another half mile because the half mile, say in the middle of the green, is actually a road allowance. That is a physical road allowance, and I think that's where it was supposed to end, if
Yeah.
I remember correctly. So this map is not correct. So if you take the nearest green on the very east end of town there,
Yeah.
that should be pink.
Okay, all right, so if I understand, you're trying to tell me that
Exactly.
so you
The road allowance.
I'm having a hard time seeing it too.
no, in between the two.
Somebody just show me where that line would be.
So are you trying to tell me that it's in between the two lines?
Yeah, it's that purple.
Is that in between the two lines, in between the greens, right in the middle of the
two
green?
green, that's a physical road
Okay,
allowance that
so
goes
help me understand, all the rest would be in pink?
Yes.
Oh,
No.
We still stay at another,
Can you color it in so we can see it? Like, take one and color it in.
Trying to,
Because it's hard for us to know.
Because otherwise, if they're gonna spread manure all over the place so close to town, you give me a break.
so this right here would be pink. That would be pink right there. Okay.
No, but here it's starting to, we already have one problem.
we were only coming back another half a mile.
So are we talking this line here now?
And
Okay,
we-
that's where it
and we
was, and now
wanted
it's
to
here.
come- We're gonna come.
no, we were
back.
way out here.
Yeah, we moved in a
And now
half.
we're there.
That's where we're at now. This is
So,
where the proposal is.
where exactly is that going to go, Dan?
Right down that
Right there.
road.
Down Range Road
This
252,
is a physical road.
then
Right,
That's where we should be.
after
There
this
it goes.
point, I'm not
so
as
it should
clear.
be out
That's this- Where's your
Kevin?
circle map?
right here.
Oh, this one here from the IDP.
Oh gosh, good luck.
So, Councillor Quinton?
So
I'm just trying to find your,
Once we get down there.
so down, down 252 for this portion, down the 252. But then I'm
There's other
not
maps
clear
right here.
once we get past Township Road 30.
This right here is the burn bad.
So this may stagger over one.
Well, this will stay right here. If this is the burn bad.
Oh, yeah, right, so that would go there.
That would go there and then we just come straight across. Oh, this shouldn't be there either. Because
Okay.
because of the roads or the highway stuff like that, you can't.
Okay. So 253 to the 30 to the 252.
The 252, correct.
252 to 30, 253.
so the very, I should have sat down with Murray about this more. So, where's your pen?
It's quite unfortunate I don't have it right.
I think one of the things that we looked at was how many acres was contained in it.
Okay.
And when we brought it back to that, I believe it's about 9,500 acres. From what the figures I was given.
I found a nice pen. There we go. That would be pink.
It would just come down to here and then jog over.
That would stay the same.
Councillor Selk?
It's over here, right? Come here,
This is
over here and then down,
Straight down.
right down to here. Yeah.
the burn bad needs.
So that little
small,
square would be
tiny put up
pink.
here, and you might want to expand.
That would
This
be
is
pink.
Councillor Selk has some to say.
So,
And
Councillor
right
Nish,
there. Show me where the airport is.
I mean, I guess I understand somewhat,
Yeah, so
you're
this
trying to
is
be
Jim-
consistent.
Jim
However, having said that,
Jensen's.
the town of McGrath doesn't have a large livestock operation like a Hutterite colony directly east of them, like we do. So we're already concerned with, the smells and odors coming from what they're spreading if they're gonna be closer to town. That makes it even more problematic.
Yeah, I understand that, but they do have a dairy to the northwest of them
That I know what it is.
that they're concerned about, and, there's,
I mean, we have the right to be concerned too.
We conceded, that we would go a half a mile farther west when we met last Thursday, right? Now you're asking
another half a mile.
they're half a mile.
Well, more than that
More than
on the
that,
bottom. It's actually 1 whole mile
If you pick up
on the bottom.
nearest green on the pink, it should be pink.
Okay. But only that top part.
Except not south.
West.
I mean, yeah.
I'll come around and show you. So right there,
For
yeah,
sure.
right, That should be pink. These X's there, and that should be pink.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Airport in town would be.
So here and here?
Correct.
So it's like this, something like that.
Those should all be pink right there. Right. And that one there should be pink. So if you want to X that, X that, X that. So the line would be here. like that.
Yes, that's exactly what I understood.
This is just,
This would be pink.
Right.
And this would be pink.
Right.
Only green would be this and this.
Okay, so that's, I understood it to be like this.
Correct. Yeah, this would be pink and that would be
Yeah.
pink. You're right.
so Kevin, when we talked on Thursday though, we were going to here, right?
It was straight through.
Yeah, it was in the middle of these squares.
Yes.
Yeah, it was straight
Yes,
through.
Yes, we just come another half mile to the west.
But you came back 1 mile on this side.
And this one here.
Okay, this is that.
That's the Bryn Bagging, yeah, he's got that small little.
Right, corner.
So if you X that, X that, X that, X that, and X that,
Okay,
and this would all be.
Councillor Nish, can I ask you something?
Yeah,
You see where you are doing that little stool kind of idea?
the jog there.
Why can it be that the line where the pink is on the top go right to the bottom of it? And that would be maybe more. Yeah. Why can't we go? Oh, it's because of Adney land, you were saying.
If
Yeah.
you go to where the pink is now
Yeah.
and come to the bottom green one, so where it says TR 30 and TR 253, and there's that green right in the middle there,
Yeah.
that is Laverne Vadney, who has
Yeah,
a small
yeah,
feedlot
yeah.
right now
Mhm.
already. So we didn't want to handcuff him if he wanted
Yeah.
to do any more on that.
Yeah. I
We would
understand.
rather, we'd rather stop anything that's going to happen up west and southwest of Cardston because of the smell and everything else. And Councillor Bengry brought the issues up that are already there. We understand that, and we don't want it any more than you guys do. But that was already talked by Councillor Nish here. That's something that was grandfathered in before the NRCB even come into effect.
No, I understand
And
that.
I think Mr. Bevins has actually came in here a year or two ago and wanted to ask to move and all that kind of stuff, and we were happy that he was going to do that, but it never happened. So.
There's a big dollar attached to that.
Not saying
Okay.
Okay, so Jeff, from a procedural perspective,
She wants it to go straight down.
how do we go about?
You don't have to debate anyone at the public hearing, so you've heard it. Mr. Beezer's here to speak, and you
Good.
can adjourn your public hearing.
All right.
And I don't know if Mr. Beezer can hear us.
Yes, I can. I just have to stop talking to the screen and turn the mute off.
All right, well, if you turn your video on, it's all yours.
Well, nobody wants to see my face, but
That's for sure.
thank you, council. Just wanted to, we met with Cardston County yesterday for their, both of their sessions so in regards to Cardston and McGrath. We just wanted to bring the town of Cardston and make them aware of a franchise agreement that was signed between us and the Cardston County in January of 2007. It's a 20-year agreement, and it encompasses the east fringe half-mile area of the town of Cardston, along with the south half-mile area. And we just wanted to let the council know, and they're aware of this franchise agreement, and that it be mentioned in the IDP. And I think the county is also already acknowledged that they will make mention of it in their agreement. So we just wanted to make the current town council aware of that agreement.
Okay, thank you so much. So the whole idea is if anything was happening in the future, that you would be sitting at a table, at least expressing your concerns.
Yes, any annexation on the east or south side of Cardston, that we would be involved in those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Albert.
All right.
So we just move to adjourn.
Yeah. Brian?
Well, Madam Chair, just in terms of process here, and again, as I was at the County Council hearing yesterday, and they did adjourn and close their hearing. So council can now make any change that's came up from the public hearing, or any changes they see fit as part of second and third reading. But of course, because we're dealing with two municipalities here, we got to make sure that we're making the same changes and be on the exact same page. So what I would say to you is that you're probably in a position to close and adjourn the hearing today, and then you can have some discussion about this matter and maybe direct staff if we need to have another committee meeting or a joint council-to-council meeting if that's necessary, or if you're okay with the changes, then we can probably continue to communicate with the county, polish up a final draft, and see this thing through.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. So we shall adjourn and close the public hearing. Councillor Bengry?
Motion to close public hearing.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. So we need to go back to our regular meeting at this point. So we heard Chief Mountain Gas go up. Let's deal with this one. Is that part of the addition that you have under E in the back of that paper?
Yes, Madam Chair. So I attempted to address this.
5.
Page 35, yes,
That's
5.8.3.
Yeah.
Now, that's a pretty simple, basic approach. If we want to go further, and it was discussed at County Council, do we want to start mentioning individual utility companies, or do we want to stay generic? Do we need to mention them and treat them a little differently because of the existence of a franchise agreement? So that's maybe where some discussion is warranted.
Okay. Jeff, we probably need a little bit of help there. At this point, we have...
My feeling is that mentioning utility... So the annexation is actually governed by a series of legislation that acknowledges franchise fees.
Yes.
We're not creating this legislation.
No.
Chief Mountain is just looking for a level of certainty that it will be acknowledged in any annexation discussion. So they're not out in the cold now. So I think just mentioning that utility companies and service providers are mentioned, there's a kind of a doubling up of making sure that they're acknowledged. I would actually hesitate listing the specific franchise agreements.
Yeah, me too.
Because that can change over time.
Yeah.
Those things can ebb and flow both in and outside of the urban. So my feeling is that the Chief Mountain Gas, if this is clauses added, should have a level of security for future development.
Is that a clause that has been accepted by the county as written right now? Do we know?
I can't speak on their behalf. There was some general head nodding, and in principle, I think they're certainly okay with it. It's fairly innocuous, has no impact to us.
Just trying to understand if we have to do the same, duplicate the same thing, may as well know what they felt about it. How does it go along for council? Are you okay with that? I think to leave it general is better, in my opinion. Okay, so there is
General head nodding.
a general head nodding.
Mayor, if I could ask Ryan, I don't know if you're going to want to look, and I think it might be, well, this is what I want your opinion, Ryan. I think it might be appropriate if you still wish to do first reading, recognizing that the CFO exclusionary may still be a point for debate. You're obviously not obligated to continue any further hearing.
Yes.
You have that to your satisfaction. But I don't know what your preference from administrating the bylaw is, Ryan.
Well, yeah, and so we did give first reading already, right?
Oh, yeah, it's already on the table. You're correct.
Yeah, we had given first reading. I think if you saw fit, if you wanted to give second reading tonight, but where I would hesitate is just I don't want to miss the mark with this. There was it seems like we understand, but to ensure that we have a document that works for both parties, if you direct myself to staff to prepare an updated draft, can circulate it to both parties, and then decide.
I think so.
I like that.
We are dealing with the April 1st deadline here, but that we've shown in good faith that we're at this point in the process. There shouldn't be any issue getting this thing done.
So, right now, we could go for second reading, but making mention, but just give me a second, but making mention that we need an updated map from.
Well, there's no
Or-
obligation to give second reading. If you wanted to, you could do that. I mean, but I think as I'm seeing Councillor Bengry's body language, maybe it's best just to hold off on both those until we have the updated draft. It's
Okay.
council's wish, I think.
So you're going to provide an updated map? Councillor Selk?
So, Ryan, you alluded to it, like, in some respects, time is of the essence here because
Yeah.
we have an April 1 deadline.
So
So
if we
do
do the
we-
second reading?
Yeah, like, do we need to pass second and third reading
Well,
tonight, or like you said, in
not
good
third.
faith, can we do this in our first council meeting, which is like the 5th or something like that of April?
You know, speaking for, I wouldn't feel, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with doing that. They have said to us that they will grant up to a 2-month extension. The tone of the letter was very much, okay, no more extensions, please, we're done with this stuff. But, so what you could, if you wanted to do, is pass a resolution to ask. A formal extension requires a resolution from both municipalities. But again, whether it's April 5th, I'm not sure, I think the county's meeting, and the gentleman can clarify for me, but I think they're on April 12th.
So has council at the county level passed only first reading up to now?
Pass first reading.
That's all what you have done, and you have paused to try to clarify this map? Councillor Quinton?
We've only done a first reading, and we're kind of in the same boat as you are. We would like to have a finished map and all these green items put in the booklet so that we know exactly what we're agreeing to do.
Okay.
All the wording, everything is right, so that you understand, and we understand
Okay.
exactly what it is.
All right, so Ryan, this needs to be fixed, but the other one that needs to be fixed is the legend. The legend needs to be,
This is not an official document, it's just.
yeah.
No, yes, that map would need an update. So if I'm understanding and getting the feel from all this from both sides, the CFO exclusionary is really the only matter left to agree upon.
Right.
Now, I didn't know if council, there's been discussion, but is this something you want to take some more time with, have some more discussion on, some perspective, or, you know?
I would suggest council take a minute just to talk amongst yourself on that map.
I really would like, to caucus maybe?
Can we do that?
I'll take a minute. Oh, I mean, I don't know how you do that.
Mayor, what I would recommend potentially procedurally is the resolution to direct administration to incorporate all the proposed changes and to bring back to council a new CFO exclusion map for future discussion.
Okay.
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, so that is to you, and then you deal with all, okay, all right, fair enough. That's what I was trying to understand, how to go about it. So somebody makes that
I'll make that motion, what Jeff said.
to direct administration to
Adjust the map and come back with,
make the necessary corrections and inclusion.
sure. So this is a collective motion.
We're
In the
committee members, so that's.
IMP. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. All right,
Okay, is that it on IMDP then?
yeah, I think so.
Need a motion to,
Councillor Barnes, did you want to say something?
I need a break.
Oh, okay, all right.
We
Okay.
actually need a motion to extend council and then
Yeah.
we can go in closed session after this.
Thank you very much.
And I'd go till 9, councillor.
I make a motion to extend till 9.
All in favor? Thank you very much.
motion to go into closed session now, or what?
Since I want a break, if you want a break, can you make a motion? Councillor Barnes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. We're counting. All in favor? Thank you.
Mark, that go. I've got my timer.
I would normally have to go. Break them like that.
I am.